Discovering my son's hidden fight, an incredible journey of life and love unveiled in 3 days. Jack woke up early, like he always did. The worn alarm clock buzzed to life in the stillness of the pre-dawn, a gentle nudge to rise and face another day. As a single father in his late 40s, Jack poured his heart into running the small hardware store that had been in his family for generations. Each sunrise brought the same routine, coffee brewing, his hands lingering on old wood and rusty tools, dreaming of better days ahead. But beneath the surface of his diligent facade lay an unshakable worry, gnawing at him as fiercely as the sound of empty pockets. Bills were piling up, customers were dwindling. The town was struggling, and so was Jack, a once vibrant marketplace now reduced to echoes of laughter and chatter. His 15-year-old son, Evan, was growing increasingly distant. Jack wasn't blind to it, he tried to chalk it up to the usual teenage angst. Evan had always been shy, sensitive, but lately, the boy had started wearing a deeper mantle of silence. Each day, Evan would retreat further into the comfort of solitude. Unbeknownst to Jack, Evan was battling an invisible illness, anxiety, depression, chronic pain, a storm raging behind the mask of a quiet smile. As summer loomed and the town buzzed with preparations for the annual fair, a cherished tradition that united the community, Jack felt excitement in the air, but also fear. Evan was supposed to join in the festivities, ride the Ferris wheel, and share cotton candy, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his son was slipping away like grains of sand through his fingers. 3 days before the fair, a flicker of light emerged when Evan's school held a surprise art contest. With a hesitant brushstroke, he revealed the talent he'd buried deep. The community's encouragement sparked a fire in him, something Jack hadn't seen in a long time. But as Evan's artwork gained recognition, jealousy ignited among some classmates, causing murmurs and whispers that only added fuel to his anxiety. Jack saw the accolades, but not the pressure they placed on Evan, unaware that a tender flicker of hope was straining against the weight of unease. One evening, tension erupted as Jack and Evan found themselves in a battle of words, accusations thrown like daggers. Jack, with his unwavering belief in hard work, couldn't understand why his son just didn't try harder, while Evan, feeling suffocated by expectations, lashed out in silence, a collision of generational struggles that left both confused and hurt. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the fair approached, nerves ran high, and Jack felt like he was losing everything, his store, his son, even himself. But then, the moment came. A few hours before the fair, he wandered into the local gallery where Evan's enchanting artwork hung brightly against the wall, a visual testament to his son's silent fight. The colors leaped from the canvas, each stroke revealing a piece of Evan Jack had failed to see, wrenching Jack's heart. In that instant, tears filled Jack's eyes. Would it be too late to learn his son's truth? As they prepared for the fair's festivities together, uncertainty loomed in the air, leaving Jack to grapple with two vital questions. Could he truly see his son again? And would they bridge the gap that had grown all too wide? The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the town as the fair preparations intensified. Bright banners fluttered against the breeze, and the laughter of children echoed like distant music, weaving an invisible thread of hope through the air. Jack stood with Evan near their booth, his heart still heavy with fear but buoyed by the art on display. As the crowd began to trickle in, Jack watched Evan engage with people, their faces lighting up as they marveled at his art. Yet, Jack could sense a flicker of uncertainty behind his son's practiced smile. He wanted to reach out, to say something that would erase the invisible barriers, but the worry held him captive. "Dad, can I take a look around?" Evan asked abruptly, his eyes darting to the horizon where the Ferris wheel loomed. "Of course," Jack replied too quickly. He didn't want to hold Evan back, but part of him feared letting him wander alone in a busy environment. "Just stay close, all right?" Evan nodded, a flash of relief breaking through his tense demeanor as he made his way toward the rides. Jack felt a pang of ache. He allowed his son autonomy but felt a desperate tug to protect him from the storms within. Moments later, Evan found himself in the familiarity of the fairgrounds, surrounded by bright lights and colorful booths. He wandered past the cotton candy stand, the scent of sugary sweetness mingling with popcorn and fried dough. But instead of joy, anxiety gripped him, squeezing tighter with each laughter he overheard. There was noise yet still a strange loneliness. Before long, Evan discovered his friends congregating around the Ferris wheel. They laughed, their camaraderie a stark contrast to Evan's quiet hesitation. Memories flickered in his mind, earlier days, when joining in felt effortless. But now, that effort seemed insurmountable. They waved him over, but friendly gestures felt heavy, filled with expectations he wasn't sure he could meet. "Hey, Evan. Come ride with us." One of them called, but the call only amplified the tightening in his chest. Not far away, Jack observed the scene unfold, his heart thumping with a mix of concern and hope. What if this was the moment? The breakthrough they needed. He approached the group, determined to bridge their rift. "Mind if I join?" Jack asked, a hopeful smile on his face. Evan's eyes widened as he turned to him, an expression of surprise flickering across his face. The friends exchanged glances, some intrigued, others uncertain. Jack felt the weight of their scrutiny, a reminder of his own fears. We're just going to ride," Evan muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Right. Let us all go together," Jack insisted, leaning into that hesitant spark he saw in Evan's eyes. "It'll be fun." With uncertainty in his heart, Evan finally nodded, and they moved toward the ride, the laughter of his friends mingling with the rising thrill in the air. As they climbed aboard, the Ferris wheel began to turn, lifting them slowly into the sky. The vibrant tapestry of the fair unfurled beneath them, a dazzling display of colors. As they reached the apex, something shifted within Evan. He glanced at his dad, who was smiling broadly, an anchor in a world that felt overwhelmingly large. The moment was fleeting but powerful, sparking a thread of connection, one that dissolved some of the weight he carried, even if just for a moment. "Look at that, Evan. Isn't it beautiful?" Jack exclaimed, his voice full of warmth. "Yeah," Evan replied, a tiny smile beginning to form as he stared out at the scene below. "It is." As they descended, the silence between father and son rippled with new possibilities. In that held space, there was a whisper of something more, a resolve to share the truth hidden beneath the surface. But just as the moment felt right, the first clouds of darkness began to gather on the horizon, threatening to overshadow the fragile bond they had just started to rebuild. "Dad," Evan started, his voice trembling with vulnerability. "I need to tell you something." What would Evan reveal as the wheels of uncertainty turned? Evan felt his heart race as he prepared to speak. The anticipation hung in the air, thick and heavy. Jack turned slightly, his warm gaze inviting Evan to share whatever rested so heavily on his chest. It seemed both a challenge and a comfort, and for a moment, the noise of the fair faded into the background, leaving just the two of them suspended above the world. "Dad," Evan began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I feel different. There's this pressure and I don't know how to explain it." His words stumbled out, hesitating on the edge of something profound. Jack leaned closer, the weight of his son's words resonating in his chest. "It's okay, son. Whatever it is, just let it out. I'm here." He reached out, brushing Evan's shoulder gently, a silent promise that he wouldn't let go. "I don't really fit in like I used to," Evan admitted, his gaze fixed on the vibrant lights below. "It feels like I'm stuck watching everyone else have fun while I just can't. They expect me to be happy and I pretend. But I'm anxious all the time." The confession tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. Jack's heart sank. He wanted to reassure Evan, to tell him it was all going to be fine. But those comforting words felt too simple for the complexity of what Evan was experiencing. "I'm sorry, buddy," he finally managed. "I didn't know you felt that way. But you're not alone in this, okay?" Evan nodded, though the frown still deepened on his face. Sometimes it's like I'm wearing a mask. Like nobody can see what's really happening inside, he admitted, staring out into the sprawling fairgrounds that felt so far away from the turmoil within him. Why didn't you tell me before? Jack pressed gently, feeling a rush of regret for not digging deeper, for not seeing the fractures beneath the surface. Because I thought you would think I was weak. Evan's voice cracked, his vulnerability laid bare. The weight of that fear hovered between them like a damning silence. That could not be further from the truth, Jack replied firmly. You're one of the strongest people I know. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, it's okay to reach out. I've been there myself, and he hesitated, searching for the right words. I'm still figuring things out too. They descended now, the ground rushing up to meet them. As the ride slowed, Evan turned to face his father fully. But what if I can't find a way out? What if I feel this way forever? His words dripped with desperation, and Jack felt his own heart break at the thought of his son trapped in that darkness. Then we'll face it together, Jack said, the determination in his voice like a steady heartbeat. I promise I'll be with you every step of the way. No more masks, okay? You can trust me. Evan's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a flicker of hope sparking in the depths of his uncertainty. You mean that? Always, Jack affirmed, his heart swelling with a mix of protective instinct and love. You are never a burden to me. As they stepped off the Ferris wheel, the cacophony of the fair returned, but the moment felt different now. There was safety in their connection, a solid foundation to build upon. But there were still shadows loitering on the fringes, and as they moved toward the booth, Jack caught sight of a figure lurking at the edge of the fairgrounds that he felt a chill run down his spine, a sense of foreboding. Evan, he called, his voice tinged with concern. Stay close. Evan looked up, confusion flickering across his face. Why, Dad? Jack didn't have an answer, but the unease settled deep within him. Whatever awaited them in the shadows could change everything. What was this figure's story? His heart pounded, eyes fixated on the shape that seemed to move with purpose, an unknown threat lingering just out of reach. Evan felt the tension in the air shift, a wave of apprehension rolling off his father. He turned to Jack, a question hanging between them, but Jack's gaze was locked on the figure crouched behind a concession stand, half hidden by the flickering lights and swirling crowd. Stay right by me, Jack urged, his voice low but steady. The fairgrounds, which had felt vibrant moments ago, now took on a surreal quality, the lights dimming around their small circle of safety. Evan gulped, a swirl of emotions crashing against each other in his chest. Was this something he had to face, both outside and within? The thoughts crawled into his mind. What if it was someone connected to him? What if he wasn't ready? As they moved cautiously forward, Jack's heart raced. With every step, he tried to rationalize the figure. Maybe it was a lost fairgoer. But deep down, Jack felt something darker looming. When they finally approached the stand, the figure stepped into the light, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. That it was a girl, maybe slightly older than Evan, with disheveled hair and eyes that hinted at a troubled past. Her clothes were worn but colorful, as if she'd once embraced the fair's joy. Now she watched them with an unsettling mix of intensity and fear. Please, don't, she mumbled, her voice barely rising above the laughter and chatter of the fair. She took a step back, pressed against the stand. I didn't mean to. What are you doing here? Jack asked, his protective instincts igniting. Evan's pulse quickened, a mix of curiosity and dread filling him. Did she need help? Was she dangerous? Just leave me alone, she whispered, her eyes darting around as if seeking escape. There was something in her voice that resonated within Evan. Are you okay? Evan blurted out, stepping closer despite his father's hand gripping his shoulder, holding him back. Why do you care? She shot back, her tone sharp, but there was a flicker of surprise in her eyes. I don't matter. Evan felt an ache in his chest. He understood what it felt like to think you didn't matter, not fitting in, not being seen. Everyone matters, he insisted, trembling slightly as he spoke. You don't have to be alone. Jack watched his son with growing apprehension and pride. Evan was being brave, opening up in ways Jack wished he could sometimes muster for himself. But this was a different arena, one he didn't fully understand. The girl stared at Evan, hesitating. I'm just scared. Sometimes it feels like I'm drowning, she confessed, her voice breaking. Jack's grip on Evan's shoulder loosened, he sensed a change. You're not alone, he said gently. We can help you. Please, just talk to us. As the girl blinked back tears, a moment of connection sparked between them. Would she let her guard down? But before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from the other side of the fairground, causing all three to jump. A commotion broke out among the crowd, people screaming and rushing in all directions. The girl's eyes widened in panic. We need to go, Jack said, instinctively pulling Evan closer. Stay behind me. Evan's heart thrummed wildly, and the chaos around them blurred into a kaleidoscope of lights and movement. What was happening? No, the girl said suddenly, stepping away from them and stepping toward the source of the crashing sounds, her face set in determination. I can't run. I need to figure this out. The determination on her face mirrored Evan's own turmoil. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. Would they follow her, or would fear hold them back? With uncertainty and resolve stirring within him, Evan found himself torn. He felt the pull of courage. Would confronting this chaos help him find his voice, or would it sink him deeper? Wait. He called out, instinctively stepping toward her. Don't go alone. Jack's eyes widened in surprise. Would they face the storm outside as they unraveled the turmoil within? What awaited them as they ventured deeper into the unknown? Evan's heart raced as the assertion of his voice echoed in his ears. The girl turned back, surprise mingling with her fear. Jack glanced between them, unsure of the unfolding scene, but something deep in his gut urged him to stay close. Are you sure? The girl asked, the tremor in her voice betraying her uncertainty. You don't even know me. But I want to, Evan replied, his voice steadying. The words came out before he could overthink them, a quiet realization bubbling up inside him. This was someone who needed help just like he sometimes did. Jack stepped closer, the shadows of the fairground swirling around them. Look, whatever's happening, we can face it together. Just tell us. What is going on? The girl's defenses dropped slightly, her shoulders relaxing as she looked at Evan. There was a fight, she whispered, her eyes darting toward the direction of the noise. Something broke glass or metal, I don't know. But they keep yelling. Jack's expression hardened. We need to get out of here, honey. It's too dangerous. There's no shame in leaving. No. She shook her head, a flash of anger igniting in her eyes. If I run away, it just keeps happening. I can't keep hiding. Evan felt her pain resonate within him. He had spent too much of his life hiding from his own feelings, from voices that echoed criticisms of who he was or how he felt. Wouldn't it be courage to face the noise? Then let us face it together, Evan said, a surge of determination igniting his fear. You don't have to do this alone. As if propelled by unseen forces, the girl took a step back toward the chaos, her eyes locking onto Evan's. For a moment, their gazes intertwined, a silent agreement forming. She was looking for something else, maybe hope. Jack stood between them, caught in the tension. If you're really going to do this, he said cautiously, his protective instincts waging war against his desire to let them explore this moment, we need a plan. We can't just blindly rush in. Evan nodded. He could feel the adrenaline surging through him. This is our chance. We need to find the source of the trouble. Maybe someone needs help. The girl glanced at Jack before turning back to Evan, her expression shifting. A flicker of admiration lit her face. You really want to help? I do, Evan answered, meaning it with every fiber of his being. Okay, just don't follow me blindly, she said, wiping her cheeks dry of distant tears. Let us be smart about it. With rapid heartbeats, the three of them moved toward the edge of the pandemonium, the sounds of distress becoming louder. They received nervous glances from onlookers who were still fleeing the scene. Jack instinctively placed himself at the front, shielding Evan and the girl as if anticipating danger around every corner. As they approached the gathering crowd, the scene became clearer. What had started as fun and laughter moments ago had turned chaotic, with a group of teenagers yelling at each other, shoving and jostling. Broken glass glimmered ominously near the Ferris wheel, glinting under the colorful lights. An uneasy feeling coiled in Evan's stomach. Was stepping into this mess going to help them or just drag them deeper into chaos? But he pushed the doubt aside, focusing on the girl beside him who suddenly looked smaller, her bravado fading amidst the madness. We should try to separate them, she whispered fiercely, scanning the commotion for signs of escalation. If I can talk to them, if we show them we're serious, maybe they'll listen. Are you sure about this? Jack asked, his voice low, concern etched into his features, but there was a fire in Evan's chest. He feared what might happen if they didn't act. I'll be right beside you, he said, stepping closer to the girl. As they moved into the thrumming heart of the disorder, Evan felt alive with purpose. But with every heartbeat came the fear of what lurked beneath the surface of their stepping forward. What awaited them at the center of the turmoil? Just trust me, she urged, and in that moment, Evan realized it wasn't just about overcoming chaos. It was a chance to face their own shadows together. Would confronting the storm bring them clarity, or would it unravel everything they were beginning to build? The ground felt uneven, but with every step, they ventured deeper into the unknown, hearts pounding in a rhythm of courage and uncertainty. Evan felt his heart thumping louder as they stepped into the chaos, the din of raised voices washing over them. He could barely make out the words, but the anger was palpable, like an electric charge in the air. The girl's presence beside him felt reassuring, a flicker of strength in the storm. He glanced over at her, trying to gauge her courage, and he noticed her fists were clenched at her sides. Let us keep moving, she urged, her tone fierce and determined. Jack remained close, scanning the faces scrunched in anger and agitation. Evan wondered if anyone truly wanted to fight, or if they were all just caught in a moment too big to control. They moved together, weaving between groups of onlookers and past the shimmering lights of the fairground that seemed to mock the seriousness of the fight. The girl's intense focus shifted from one person to the next, and Evan could feel her searching for a path through the chaos. Suddenly, a loud crash rang out, followed by shocked gasps. Evan's stomach dropped. What was that? He whispered, his fears bubbling back to the surface. Glass breaking, she said grimly. There's a chance someone is hurt. Without waiting for Jack or Evan's response, she surged forward, more determined than ever. Jack exhaled sharply. Wait. He called. We can't just barrel in there. But she didn't slow down. Evan felt an unwavering pull to follow her. Jack, she's right, he said, his voice resolute. If someone's hurt, we can't ignore it. As they pushed deeper into the crowd, Evan caught glimpses of faces twisted in rage. He searched for any sign of compassion, but all he saw were raised fists and fiery glares. With every step, Evan grappled with fear, battling the doubt rising within him. Was this the right thing to do? Was he really brave enough to take a stand? A wild shout split the air, and Evan's chest tightened at the sound. He shared a glance with the girl, whose eyes were fixated on a cluster of boys in the middle. They were larger, physically dominating the scene, while their shouts only amplified the tension. Stay close, she whispered, and Evan nodded, more to reassure her than himself. Suddenly, one of the boys swung a fist, landing it squarely against another guy's jaw. The world seemed to halt for a heartbeat. Evan's gut clenched, and he felt the urge to move, to intervene, but his feet felt like cement. The chaos around him blurred as adrenaline surged. Now! The girl shouted, the urgency in her voice breaking through Evan's thoughts like a lightning bolt. We need to separate them. Without hesitation, she plunged into the mass of bodies. Evan followed instinctively, heart racing faster than he thought possible. He felt Jack at his back, a stalwart presence anchoring him as they pushed into the fray. "Hey! Stop it!" she shouted, arms raised, her voice cutting through the noise. It took a moment for anyone to even acknowledge her. But as she shouted, the energy shifted slightly, drawing some attention away from the fight. Someone has to be the voice of reason, Evan thought, desperately wanting to contribute. He caught the eyes of a few spectators, who began to step forward as well. Maybe they weren't alone in wanting to intervene, but just as they got close enough to intervene, Evan felt an unexpected shove from behind. He stumbled, losing his footing and colliding with the girl, who barely managed to catch herself. Together, they fell to the ground, the chaos swirling ominously around them. Rage erupted anew from somewhere in the fray. Evan's heart raced as he looked up, fear clawing at him. They were exposed, vulnerable. "Are you okay?" he breathed, catching her gaze. She nodded, determination igniting once more, but Evan could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Help me get us back up." As they scrambled to stand amidst the chaos, Evan realized that this moment would define not only how they dealt with the scene around them but what it meant to truly stand together against their fears. A tension filled the air, thickening as they got to their feet, but just when Evan thought he would be overwhelmed. He sensed a shift, a pause in the anger around them, almost as if a breath was held. What if this was a turning point? A moment when they could reshape what was happening? Together. He yelled suddenly. "We can stop this." The words reverberated in the atmosphere, leaving room for a collective breath. But would anyone listen? Evan held his breath, waiting to see if courage could truly quell the fire. Would their fight bring clarity or more chaos? "Now!" the girl cried, her voice rallying them forward. Would they find the strength to rise above? Or would this turmoil drag them under? The crowd surged around them, a tide of sound and fury. Evan's heart pounded as he stood shoulder to shoulder with the girl, a fragile barricade against the escalating chaos. He could feel the heat radiating from the bodies surrounding them, the raw energy both frightening and galvanizing. The urgency in her voice ignited something within him, stirring a latent courage that he didn't know he had. "Together!" he shouted again, louder this time, desperation seeping into his tone. The moment hung heavy, suspended in the shadow of uncertainty. Would his words find purchase in the minds of the gathering throng? Would they spur others to act, or would they be washed away in the tide of rage? The girl's fierce gaze fixed on a few faces nearby. "Come on! We can't just stand by." Slowly, eyes turned toward them. Some registered confusion, others, a flicker of understanding. Evan seized the chance, stepping a little further into the fray. The tremor in his voice made him sound less like a scared teenager and more like someone willing to risk himself for a greater cause. "Look! We can help them." He gestured toward the knotted mass of boys, the anger like a storm ready to erupt again. "This doesn't have to continue." One by one, more people lifted their heads. To his amazement, he began to see others nodding. The realization washed over him: Evan wasn't alone. "Let us create a path," the girl exclaimed, energizing the group. "If we can just break this up, maybe they'll see sense." As if summoned by her command, several people stepped forward, forming a barrier. Evan's fears ebbed slightly. Instead, he felt a shared resolve swell around him. Evan focused on the fight, heart racing at the sight of the boys so absorbed in anger. "Hey!" he called out, voice breaking through the din. "Stop! You're better than this." For a flickering moment, the punches paused, eyes darting between Evan and the girl. The boys hesitated, aggression momentarily replaced by confusion. They didn't know who this voice was, or why two kids were very much inside their raging storm, trying to wash it away. That hesitation was all they needed. The girl's voice cut back in, and Evan felt her strength feeding into him. "We're not here to fight. She shouted, her authority unshakable. "We're here to stop this. We're better than violence." And in that split second, it happened, another set of voices rose up, encouragement, rallying cries from those in the crowd who had finally found their courage. "You're right," someone shouted. "This is ridiculous." The ripple of strength coursed through the crowd, gaining momentum. The boys' expressions shifted, caught between the anger and the myriad of voices surrounding them, voices of strangers who had once stood by, now invested in the potential resolution. Their fists began to drop, uncertainty blooming in their eyes. Was it possible? Could they really break free from this chaos? Evan could hardly breathe as calm seeped into the chaos. He spotted Jack, who was pushing forward, determination etched across his face. "Together," he echoed, riding the wave of change. Suddenly, the boy who had thrown the first punch stepped back, shaking his head as though awakening from a dream. "What are we doing?" he whispered, vulnerable and yet so very aware. Evan's breath hitched. This was it. This moment of clarity was the beginning of something different, but just then, a figure burst through the crowd, jostling the fragile truce. The air thickened once more, tension curling back into the space. Evan's heart sank as he recognized the newcomer, a tall guy with a hostile air, face twisted into a mask of anger. "What the hell is going on here?" the newcomer bellowed, glaring at everyone, ready to reignite the chaos. The fragile bond they had formed began to fray instantly, fear creeping back in. Would the collective courage withstand this sudden blow? Would their efforts dissolve into yet another cycle of violence? Evan stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. He had to act. "We can stop this," he shouted, panic pushing him to take a stand against the rising tide. Would they find the strength to hold against this new wave? Or would they, after so much effort, be swept back into darkness? Evan's voice trembled but grew steadier as he faced the newcomer. The tall guy's intense stare bore down on him, but Evan felt the collective heartbeat of those backing him. He could almost hear their silent prayers for peace. "Hey! We're all in this together," Evan shouted, taking a step closer. The distance was small, yet it felt monumental, like standing between two angry storm clouds. He needed to help others see that this was more than just a fight, it was about their futures. "Why do you care?" the newcomer sneered, crossing his arms, still ready to reignite the tension. "You think this will change anything?" "Because we want better," Evan countered, pulling his own strength from the crowd's resolve. "Fighting won't solve anything. Look around you, this is our community, and we're better than this." The words came, fueled by emotion, a fervor that surged within him. The girl beside him nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "Look, this isn't just about you or us. People out here want to see real change. We're done with violence." Each word fell like stones in the air, grounding the moment. The crowd began to shift. Evan noticed people exchanging glances, nodding at one another. It was a silent agreement sparking hope within the tension. He pointed to the boys still locked in their confrontation, who had begun to inch back from one another. "If we can be brave enough to stand together, then they can be brave enough to walk away." His voice rang true, resonating with something deep inside each person. They felt it, a collective yearning for peace, a desire to lift the burden of fear that had gripped their community for too long. But as Evan glanced back at the tall newcomer, he saw the resolve crumbling. "You think this is going to work?" the guy growled. "You're wasting your time." Evan stepped closer, locking eyes with him. "What are you so afraid of? If you really care about something, you should fight for it, not against it." The boy who had once thrown the punch was now standing beside Evan, face pale, yet filled with a fragile glimmer of hope. "A fight doesn't make you strong. Strength means standing up for what's right," he said softly. Evan felt the tide turning again. The stranger's expression wavered, and for the first time, doubt crept back in. Would he back down? Could he let the anger slip away, too? Just then, the crowd took another collective step forward, emboldened by the weight of camaraderie as Jack shouted, let us take our community back. Together. Every word echoed in the air, energizing the crowd. More voices joined in, and the barrier of fear seemed to dissolve further. The newcomer shifted, uncertainty illuminating his brow, erupting in a whisper of confusion, but before anything could further unfold, a piercing siren wailed in the distance, a reminder that help was on the way. It sliced through the air, freezing the moment, a signal of authority that could bring safety, or more chaos. Evan looked to the girl, a growing sense of urgency seeping back into the scene. We need to hold them together. We can't let fear win. Would the sirens bring the support they so desperately needed? Or would it lead to something even more disastrous? As the sound rang louder, the energy in the crowd shifted once again, teetering on the edge of a brand new unknown. Evan's heart thundered in his chest as the siren wailed closer. The crowd, which had been gathering strength and unity, now felt the tension rise again. He glanced around, seeing fear flickering across faces that just moments ago had exuded hope. The vibrant energy now felt fragile, hanging in the balance, and the boy beside him looked up, eyes wide, like a deer caught in headlights. Stay focused. Evan urged, his voice steady despite the turmoil. We can't let this slip away. We need each other more than ever. He watched as fear turned to urgency among the crowd. The distant sound of the siren grew louder, and some began to shift uneasily, casting anxious glances over their shoulders. Would the sirens bring help, or would they cool the fiery passion that just ignited? The newcomer finally dropped his guard slightly, confusion etched on his angular features. His arms unfolded just enough to expose the vulnerability beneath the bravado. Evan sensed that the boy felt the same shift within himself, something deep, something he hadn't acknowledged before. Just take a breath, Evan said calmly, trying to anchor the frantic energy swirling around them. We're all here together. This is our chance. The newcomer hesitated, searching Evan's eyes, looking for the truth in the depth of chaos. You think any of this matters? He pressed, his voice barely above a whisper, shaking slightly. Absolutely, Evan replied, the fire in his belly sparking anew. Every person standing here matters. Every voice counts. It's time we realize we're stronger as a family, and families don't throw punches at each other. The tension seemed to evaporate, replaced by a flicker of recognition on the newcomer's face, and a few others in the crowd began to murmur their agreement. The girl beside Evan stepped forward, her spirit alive with fire. Let us show everyone that we care about each other, not just ourselves, she declared. Cheers erupted from the crowd, and arms began to link together. With one resolve, they stepped closer to the boys who had been at the heart of the fight, drawing them into the circle they created, closing the gap of fear and hostility. Just then, the first police car screeched to a halt, lights flashing, making the day feel surreal. A heaviness blanketed their unity, but Evan held firm. Remember, we're standing for love, for change. He shouted, hoping to drown out the sense of authority that threatened to fracture their newly found bond. The officers climbed out, eyes darting through the crowd, assessing the situation. Evan felt a rush of adrenaline. Would they see the calm resolve? Would this lead to understanding or more chaos? He took a steadying breath. Just then, Evan's father stepped out from the back seat of one of the police cruisers. The familiar figure struck a chord deep within him, and for the briefest moment, their eyes connected, filled with emotions unspoken. They hadn't seen each other face to face since the summer. An unyielding distance had separated them. The crowd fell silent, every gaze now shifting to Evan's father as he took a step forward. Evan, he called, voice booming but quivering with concern. What's happening? Evan could feel the weight of his father's worry, and suddenly, the stakes felt remarkably higher. The moment surged with potential, a tipping point either toward understanding or an escalation of the chaos. Dad, we're trying to do something good, Evan began, uncertainties creeping back in, but all he could think of was how to make things right, how to show his father the strength of their collective will. As he spoke, a small voice broke through the silence, capturing attention like a spark in dry grass. But what if we fall apart? Hope clashed against dread, and the crowd stood teetering on the edge. How could Evan rally them, and more importantly, would his father join him? Every heart raced, holding close to a fragile hope that threatened to shatter. Would this be the moment that decided their fate? Or would they falter at the precipice of change? The swirling chaos of sounds and anger began to coalesce into a single, resonant heartbeat as Evan stood at the forefront, feeling the weight of the moment on his shoulders. The crowd was watching their fears, their hopes, all contained in the glances exchanged. He glanced back at the boy who had thrown the punch, whose expression now wavered between confusion and remorse. There was a flicker of understanding there, but would it be enough? Please! Evan shouted, desperation coating his voice. We can't let this night end in more fighting. We can show everyone here that we're bigger than this. We can change. A stillness settled over the crowd, shockwaves rippling through the bystanders as his words took root. The tall newcomer, usually so fierce, had lost some of that menace, intrigue dawning as he hesitated. Then Evan's heart leaped as Jack edged forward, searching the crowd with his fierce, protective gaze, anchoring Evan in a sea of uncertainty. Evan! Jack called, urgency heightened in his tone but also filled with pride. You're being brave, son. That's what it means to truly fight. The energy around Evan flickered, igniting as both his father and the girl beside him burst forth in encouragement. The boy who'd been ready to fight, now confused and hesitating, glanced between Jack and Evan. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, he stammered, a wave of realization washing over him. This is all stupid. Why do we keep doing this? Jack stepped closer, seeming to see the potential for change lighting up the young man's face. You're not alone, he reassured firmly, an unwavering presence. We've all been lost at times. But you can choose to be better, to become part of something greater. In the crowd, murmurs began to rise, a soft wave, encouragement trickling forth as voices echoed the sentiment. Be better. We choose love. Together. Jack's eyes met Evan's, and in that shared glance, a surge of unity blossomed in his son's heart. Would they really rally together? Would this moment soak through the layers of pain, fear, and silent struggles that had woven their lives over the years? Evan took a step forward, anxiety heavy in his chest but resolved. If we don't fight against each other, then we can stand with each other. Can we try to understand what we're really fighting for? His words poured from his heart, raw and honest, igniting that same flicker in others. Whatever we're facing, we've got each other, right? The girl beside him turned to the crowd, her determination piercing through the fear. If we focus on what we have in common, our hopes, our dreams, we can build off that foundation. I don't want to feel alone anymore. Let us work together. With each passing second, Evan felt the energy building anew, fueled by collective spirit. The boys in the center, brought to stillness by the tide of unifying voices, could only stand and stare, vulnerability dawning across their faces. Then the sirens grew louder, pressing against their ears. Jack pivoted at the approaching sounds, eyeing the police who emerged resolutely yet still. Evan felt hope blooming within him. This is our chance. Evan called out, heart racing like a drum. Let us show them that we resolve this. We are not just angry kids. The crowd surged forward, connecting arms simultaneously, an unintentional line of solidarity forming. We want peace. Someone shouted, a ripple that spread wider, each voice amplifying the harmonies of hope against despair. Evan felt the connection, the love pooling around them, and for the first time, he truly believed they could defuse the storm. With each unified heartbeat, fear faded and ash washed away in the tide of collective strength. As the officers reached them, they saw not a brawl but a community in recovery, a community ready to defend each other. Jack stepped into view, his presence grounding and fierce, showing the police that these were kids with promise, not threats, and in that moment of unity, under the flashing lights of the fairground, Evan did not just see faces, he felt the vibration of shared hearts, each yearning for understanding, each yearning for love. Slowly, assuredly, the crowd parted. Smiles blossomed, breaths eased. What had once spurred chaos now cradled possibility. "I see you," the newcomer said finally, his voice cracking as he stepped toward the front, inching away from the storm. "If we keep fighting, we'll only hurt ourselves." Evan felt that statement ripple through the crowd, a collective breath of agreement, lifting the weight of years spent hiding behind masks. It was no longer a battle, it was the birth of something new, a shared journey, bound together in vulnerability and strength. "Yeah," Evan said slowly, turning to the girl. "We can turn this into our story instead." And in the soft glow of the fading day, Evan finally realized he wasn't alone. The journey ahead would be bright and full of shared strength, not just for himself, but for everyone, with transformation becoming a tapestry woven across their hearts. This was not the end, but a beginning, ripe with possibilities as they stepped forward together, hearts light, carrying the promise of brighter days. That if you felt that surge of hope and transformation, then now is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that inspire change and courage. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because every click counts. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending below. I want to hear your thoughts, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can spread the message of love and healing.